Hello, I'm the 10-minute English teacher. Let's get you exam ready. Today, we're thinking about English language, and I'm going to help you to understand how to get a 7, 8 or a 9 in paper 2. Before we get going, don't forget to like and subscribe. There are plenty of things on the channel to help you revise for English language. Okay, how to get a 7, 8 or a 9 in English language paper 2. And today we are thinking about paper 2 for AQA, and in that paper you have 1 hour and 45 minutes. The first hour, section A, is the reading section, and then you have 45 minutes for the writing section. They are equally weighted and worth 40 marks each. First thing I'm going to tell you today is to get key terms right. Here are some examples of key terms. So a noun is a thing like butter. A feeling like hate is an abstract noun. You can call concrete nouns things that we might have to imagine, images as well. And that is the same case when you're analysing poetry or writing for literature. Here are some examples: butter, boy and bereavement, with bereavement there being an abstract noun. Adjectives, they are words to describe things. Words together are known as adjectival phrases, and there are some examples: ugly, beautiful and somewhat small. Together, somewhat small, those two words work as an adjectival phrase. A verb is a doing word: run, jump and write. Then we've got adverb. That's a word or adverbial phrase telling us how the action, a verb, in a sentence is being done. And there are some examples: slowly, hastily and with glee. With glee is an adverbial phrase. Some other key terms that you might be coming across in English language paper 2. Simile, where something is like or as something else, as cold as snow is an example. A metaphor is very similar to a simile. It's still figurative, but in this instance, we would be talking about something being that thing. Eyes of snow. Personification is making something seem alive that isn't. The thunder roared in triumph would be an example of that. Direct address, addressing the reader. You should ask yourself why, and that's very persuasive when we're writing a piece of discursive writing. That's an important technique to use. And anecdotal evidence is where we include a short story. A few years ago, that is very interesting and worth using when it comes to doing the writing section. So now I'm going to talk to you about how you need to manage your time, which is really, really important. So these are the 4 questions of the reading section. The first question, as is the case with paper 1, is very straightforward. You're ticking some boxes, well, shading them in really, after you've read the extracts. There are 2 in paper 2. Then you've got a summary question that I'm going to quickly walk you through today. You're asked to analyse language in one of the texts for question 3, and then you're comparing methods used for question 4. And language is a method. So let's have a little think about question 1. As I said, you're going to be ticking 4 boxes after you've read the extracts. Here's an example of a question 1 from a past paper. Relatively straightforward. The instructions are as follows. You're to shade the circles in the boxes that you think are true. And there are some instructions there if you get anything wrong. Here's an example of what that will look on the page. You'll get A to H and you are to colour in the dots of the ones that are true. This is expected to be relatively straightforward, and most students nationally get either 3 or 4 marks. So in the first 15 minutes, you should have read both extracts carefully. You can use your highlighter to highlight things that you think you might be called upon to use later. And then you're going to move on to question 2. Question 2. So question 2 is the summary question, and we're going to think now about what that involves. Here are some examples of past paper summary questions. I won't read all of them to you now, but I'll just read the top one as an example. Feel free to pause and have a look at the others. You'll notice that they are quite similar. You need to refer to source A and source B for this question. Both sources give details about the places where the events occur. So this was a year where people were reading about 2 different places. Use details from both sources to write the summary of the difference between Aberfan, which is a small place in Wales, a small village, and London, which is obviously a city. So for that question, you're having to write about the differences, and you're looking for a range of quotes from each source. So your job is to find relevant parts to explain how the 2 sources are exploring something in a different way. And you're probably wanting to aim to use around 4 quotes from each source. I've got a model response in front of you. Imagine you went into the exam and you had to write about 2 very different schools, maybe one from 150 years ago and an article about a school that's quite recent. This is the sort of thing that you might see as a model response in response to that. Oakbush School is a place with lots of interesting things to do. The children can take place in things like the filmmaking club or gaming club, and they can contribute to the school's social media output. It says a part of the school's website is produced by the students about the events they take part in. In St Ivan's School, things are different, and things mentioned that take place at sports, such as the rugby team, which students have to take part in trials to be a part of. This suggests that the things on offer are quite exclusive and exclude a lot of students, which is not the case at Oakbush, which has something to appeal for every student. So lots of different parts of the 2 extracts will have been used here. So we've taken a range of references. You can see those here now in pink. We've actually got 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 quotes used just in that very small extract there. So we're taking lots of different references from the text, but you also have to explore the way in which they're different. The more sophisticated students would be noticing maybe that one school is more about the idea of the school and representing the school and the school community, and the other one is much more about appealing to individual needs and respecting the individual student. That's a sort of sophisticated thinking that you might do if you're heading towards a 9. That takes us to question 3. Question 3 is the language analysis question, and in that question we're going to be using PEA. Here are some examples of past paper questions. We'll just have a look at the top one. You now need to refer only to source B, Dickens' description of the fair itself, from lines 19 to the end. How does Dickens use language to make you, the reader, feel part of the fair? You are, in that question, being asked to look at lines 19 to the end. If you are analysing lines that are not in lines 19 to the end, you are not going to be awarded the marks. So you've got to be really careful to make sure you use the part of the extract that you are being guided towards. And to do this, you're going to use point evidence analyse. So we're going to imagine that we've been given an extract about a school from many years ago, and we're being asked to think about how that school might be described. So here's my point. The writer makes the school seem big and impressive. I'd use my evidence. He uses the simile, like a medieval tower, to describe part of the school. And here's a bit of analysis. This simile elicits thoughts of fairy tales and myths, as if visiting the school is like stepping into another world. Now, I've said one thing here. If you're aiming for a 9, you want to try and be really sophisticated and think about layers of meaning, alternative interpretation. So can you say more than one thing? Is there more than one possibility? Here's another example. This simile also elicits thoughts of history, reflecting the traditions of the school, which may be important. And I'll go again. This simile elicits thoughts of kings, making the school seem important, prestigious, that sort of thing. So I've used PEA, but in the analysis, I've tried to be a lot more sophisticated, and I've thought about different layers of meaning. That's what I need to do maybe 3 or 4 times in order to get myself that top band mark for this question. Question 4 comes next. That is to compare methods used. If we just think about the marks here, question 1 is worth 4 marks, but we do need 15 minutes to make sure we've read the extracts really carefully. The summary question's worth 8, the language analysis question is worth 12 marks, and this compare methods used question for question 4 is worth 16. So it needs a little bit more focus from us, probably just under shy of 20 minutes focus, and we do really want to engage with both extracts. So let's just think about what those questions look like. Here's an example. We'll think about the one at the top. Feel free to pause and read both if you care to. For this question, you need to refer to the whole of source A together with the whole of source B. Compare how the writers convey their different perspectives on, and that is the thing that will change for you. On this occasion, it was the extreme weather conditions. 2 texts were given to the students that year about weather. It will always say something like, in your answer, you could compare the perspectives, compare the methods, and support your references. Support your response, with references to both texts. So that's what you can expect. You're comparing the two, you're thinking about the methods. Now, if we're thinking about methods, we can talk about figurative language, the use of similes and metaphors. You can think about the rhetorical devices and the impact of those. You can think about the tone as well. Is there sarcasm used or humour? That sort of thing. Does one have a serious, formal tone, and why? There might be a rebuttal where they talk about the counter-argument. There might be an anecdote that's used. And you might also talk about something like irony. Methods are extensive. Lots of students focus on language, and that is okay. Use PEAL. So we're using PEA, but if you can use a link to the other to compare, that's going to get you higher marks. Analyse a few quotes from each source in the time you've got. And that takes us to question 5. Reminding you that we will have at this point completed the reading section, and then we move on to the writing section. You have 45 minutes to do this, and it's really important that you manage that 45 minutes effectively. First thing you do in the first 5 minutes is you plan, and at the end you are going to spend 5 minutes editing. If you're going to get yourself a 9, you will have edited at the end. The best writers will have chosen to change vocabulary, improve their work, and that writing time at the end should be cut short so that you can spend a bit of time editing. So here's an example of a past paper question. Section B, writing. You're advised to spend about 45 minutes on this section. It's no secret. That's what you're directed to do. You're reminded to plan your answer. You should write in full sentences, and you should leave enough time at the end to check your work. Exactly as I've said, 5 minutes either side of your writing for planning and editing. So one tip to you is to be persuasive. Lots of your teachers might have told you about a forest, and most of that is absolutely A-OK. Some of it is a little bit old hat, a little bit old-fashioned, and a little bit ineffective. When your teachers were at school, a forest was something that was considered exceptional and very sophisticated. Today it is looked down upon by many examiners, and for good reason too. If you think about fact, opinion and statistics, they aren't that effective. So including the opinion of a made-up expert and making statistics up yourself might help fill the page, but it doesn't always seem believable and convincing, which students who achieve the highest marks will be. It's a lot better to include the rebuttal to the counter-argument. So you might say, some people say, or it's true that, and you're showing that you understand the other side of the argument if you're being discursive, and then you can take that argument on and explain why those people aren't quite right. So you're definitely going to plan your response at the beginning. Here's an example of a plan for this question. Young people have it easier than ever before. We're going to start with an intro. So you're just going to state the position that you have, and you might argue no. You can argue yes as well. There's no right or wrong answer. Then I would be talking about why social media makes things difficult for young people. I might talk about the cost of living and how expensive things are. Might talk about mobile phones and the complications that they can cause for young people. I might address the counter argument, the idea that the internet makes things easier, but actually it can make things just as complicated. And then I'm going to end with a little conclusion. So I might finish off with something that's quite emotive, summing up my response, or I might come up with a call to action. If you're someone who thinks that young people have it easy, think again, and I'm going to direct my audience or my reader to reevaluate their opinions. Couple of last things for you to think about. One of them is paragraphs. Make sure that you are changing them for time, topic, person, place, or any new speaker. They can also be used for dramatic effect. A one-sentence paragraph will definitely have impact. If you really can't get your head around paragraphs at this stage in the game, just start a new one every half a page if you can't work out when to. You are limiting your response. In fact, you're probably going to struggle to get yourself above a 4 if you're not paragraphing your writing effectively. One way that you're going to head towards a 7, 8, 9 is by using a range of sentence forms. Here are a few examples. So a fronted adverbial, you should know what one of those is. It's when a word or phrase that explains how, when, where or why something is being done is used at the beginning of a sentence. And there is an example. Unfortunately, comma, social media is a destructive force. You can take a noun and you can put it right at the front of a sentence and you will have used a foregrounded noun phrase. Here's an example. Phone screens are ubiquitous, which means everywhere. Those of you who've studied A Christmas Carol might know that word. In today's society. And a relative clause is really good. Anytime you've got a noun or a noun phrase in a sentence, you can cut in with commas and you can give the reader something extra. Here's an example. Martin Luther King, comma, who didn't have a mobile phone, comma, led the civil rights movement. So I might be making a point about how we can achieve amazing things without social media in that piece of writing. Editing your writing is really important. If you're going to get a 7, 8 or a 9, you will have checked for mistakes, but you also would have made improvements. If you want any more information about how to edit your writing or how to improve your sentences, there are a range of videos on the channel, one of which is Sentence Hacks, which teaches you how to take the ordinary and make it really special. Okay, check out the other videos on my channel. I'll continue to add content. Feel free to ask something you'd like to see me cover in the comments section. Don't forget to like and subscribe and share and keep revising.